Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sugar Free Advantage YouTube channel. This is Tony Lapatina back at you, and today we're going to continue our series on sugar. This is the third chapter of the sugar saga, and in this one, Karen Bentley is going to relate sugar to cholesterol and tell you how they're tied together, what impact sugar has on cholesterol, and other things that go on inside your body as a result of consuming sugar. So take it away, Karen.
Thanks, Tony. This is Karen Bentley, and we're going to be talking about cholesterol today. I know it's not the most exciting topic, but I have some exciting theories to share with you about the role of sugar, cholesterol, and inflammation, and we'll get those exciting theories at the end of this presentation. But first, I just want to remind everybody that I'm a health educator. I'm not an MD, I'm not a PhD, I'm not an RN, I'm not a nurse practitioner, I'm not a scientist, I'm a health educator. I've been in this field over 20 years. I've formed educated opinions, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today, educated opinions. So before we get started on cholesterol, let's just review a few basics. So Tony, when I say the word sugar, this is table sugar. What am I referring to? Do you?
Natural sugars. Could be that, could be syrup, could be high fructose corn syrup, basically natural sugar products, either powdered or liquid.
Exactly. So I'm using the word sugar, all caloric sweeteners, because it's just too wordy to say all those types of caloric sweeteners. So just keep in mind that when we use the word sugar, we're talking about all caloric sweeteners because they all have the same effect. So Tony, what is cholesterol?
It's this one I thought I would remember.
You got this.
It's kind of it's a waxy substance that's used in the body, that's manufactured in the body. There's two types, high density, which is good for you, and low density, which is not good for you, but I forget its purpose.
All right, you did great, Tony. That's awesome. So I'm just going to give you a few readings from some other resources. The American Heart Association says cholesterol is a waxy substance. It's not inherently bad. In fact, your body needs it to build cells, but too much can pose a problem. The National Institute of Health says cholesterol is a waxy fat-like substance that your body needs for good health, but in the right amounts. The Cleveland Clinic says cholesterol is a waxy type of fat or lipid. Lipid is the scientific word for fat, which moves throughout your body in your blood. Lipids are substances that do not dissolve in water, so they do not come apart in blood. Your body makes cholesterol, but you can also get it from foods. Cholesterol is only found in foods that come from animals. And why it's essential? Cholesterol is vital to human life. Your cells need it for proper permeability and fluidity. Your body uses it to make bile acids, hormones, vitamin D, and other essentials, especially your brain. Your brain is really reliant on cholesterol. And, to have good sex functionality, you need cholesterol. So it's really an important thing in your body, and it's maybe not the villain that we're making it out to be. So, Tony, you mentioned the two types of cholesterol. How are they different?
Well, high density is different substance-wise in terms of its absorbability or its ability to absorb. Low density is not, and it's not good for you.
Very good. Okay, so the way you can remember low density not being good for you is with the letter L. L means lousy. So LDL is the lousy cholesterol, and HDL, you can remember H is healthy. So that's how I keep it straight, lousy and healthy. And LDL, when these resources describe cholesterol as a waxy substance, they're actually describing LDL or the lousy cholesterol. They're not describing HDL or the healthy cholesterol, and it's really got different properties. It's a gel-like substance. and it moves through your blood vessels like a vacuum cleaner. And it may even vacuum up the LDL cholesterol, and it vacuums up calories, and it vacuums up fat, and it vacuums up toxins. And then that gets excreted out of you. So it's a really good helper to you. That's why having more HDL is a good thing. And what is the property that makes LDL so undesirable, Tony? What does it tend to do in your blood vessels?
It creates plaque, which can clog up your vessels, sticking to the
Exactly.
sides and making dams and blockages.
Exactly. So we've got that cholesterol is a waxy substance if it's LDL, and a gelatinous substance if it's HDL, and that it's essential for our body to function properly. We need it. And where does it come from, Tony? Where do we get cholesterol in our blood?
The body makes it, but I forget where. And it also comes from animals.
Exactly. So it comes from two sources. This is from the American Heart Association. Cholesterol comes from two sources. Your liver makes all the cholesterol you need. The remainder of the cholesterol in your body comes from foods derived from animals. Now, this is where the controversy starts. It starts right here, because not everybody believes that the cholesterol that is in your blood comes from animal sources. So we'll just put that in the conflict pile, because there's a lot of conflict when it has to do with cholesterol and sugar and the topics we're going to be talking about today, and trying to cut through that for you guys so that you can decide for yourself what makes the most sense. Here's from the Tufts Health and Nutrition letter. The liver and other cells manufacture all the cholesterol the body needs. We also get cholesterol when we consume animal products such as egg yolks, meat, and cheese. In healthy individuals, however, the liver lowers the amount of cholesterol it makes in response to your diet. Dietary cholesterol is no longer a nutrient of public health concern. So they're saying, don't worry about it. It's not doing anything. Here's another blurb from Tufts Health and Nutrition letter. And it says, the links between saturated fat, blood cholesterol, and heart disease are complex. They're reporting on a meta-analysis, which is a study of multiple studies. There was 21 in this group, and there was 347,000 people in this meta-analysis where they failed to find a significant association between saturated fat intake and the risk of coronary heart disease, stroke, or cardiovascular disease. So that seems pretty potent to me.
And for a lot of years, those were bad things.
Bad things. Another blurb from the Tufts Nutrition and Health letter. The University of California, Davis researchers reported that overweight men and women who got 25% of their calories from fructose sweetened beverages developed signs of atherosclerosis in as little as 2 weeks.
Oof.
After just 2 weeks, the fructose group, but not the glucose group, had already developed a lipid profile. Lipid is the word for fat, typical of atherosclerosis. By the study's end, the fructose group also showed increases in fasting blood concentrations of LDL, the lousy cholesterol, while the glucose group did not. This one from the Food and Fitness Advisor. Sugar forms the backbone of triglycerides. So when you eat a lot of sugar, you get increased fat production and more triglycerides in the blood. There appears to be a very direct connection here. From the National Institutes of Health, this study noted that the fructose diet resulted in significant increases in total cholesterol and LDL compared with a control group diet. The high fructose diet also resulted in significantly lower levels of HDL, the good cholesterol. And this last one is from the Cleveland Clinic. I love the Cleveland Clinic because they're a little bit of an edgier resource. They actually come out and say something that isn't the party line, and it's so refreshing to have a resource that uses their platform to say something to us that that we can put to use in a better way than just saying saturated fat and trans fats are the cause of everything. So here's what the Cleveland Clinic has to say. For decades, research singled out saturated fat and cholesterol as the prime dietary villain in heart disease. Following a report that the sugar industry quietly funded much of that research, sugar has found itself in the spotlight. Here's a breakdown of sugar's impact on lipids, which is fat, the substances in your blood that contribute to heart disease. First one, diets high in sugar make your liver synthesize more bad LDL cholesterol. Second one, a sugary diet lowers your good HDL cholesterol. The third one, excess sugar profoundly raises your triglycerides, a blood fat. And at the same time, it inhibits an enzyme that breaks the triglycerides down. So that's a pretty compelling case that maybe it's not the fat and maybe sugar has something to do with it. What do you think, Tony?
I agree. I mean, that's far more specifics than any of the other, like you said earlier, party lines have put it out there. This gets a lot more specific, and I believe makes it more understandable and more relatable.
Right, exactly. So, what is it about the LDL cholesterol that makes it so bad? What is it that it does to us?
Builds plaque,
Builds
clogs
plaque
arteries.
Yep, and then what happens?
Who knows?
Yeah,
Strokes,
there's usually
heart
a
attacks.
cardiac event of some kind, some blockage, right. A heart attack, a stroke, something happens that you don't want to have happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I just want to review the risk a little bit about this. This is from Century Science Associates. Despite considerable scientific data showing that high blood cholesterol and heart attacks do not have a causal relationship, but rather are co-symptoms of an unhealthy dietary regime, the nutritional and medical communities continue to insist that high blood cholesterol is dangerous and must be reduced. So here's some more conflicting information for us to digest. It's a puzzle piece to put on the table. I'm going to shoot myself.
We can cut this part out. Take a deep breath.
All right.
Pick up where you left off. All right, let me do this. Let me say, I'm going to say marker. All right. So I can find this later and then you can go. All right.
Oh my God, I'd make myself crazy. All right.
Don't worry, just a few seconds. Don't worry. All right. Marker.
So let's explore the risk factors with cholesterol just for briefly before we get to those exciting theories. This one is from Century Science Associates. This is another edgy kind of organization that says things you're not going to hear from mainstream resources. And here's the quote: despite considerable scientific data showing that high blood cholesterol and heart attacks do not have a causal relationship, but rather are co-symptoms of an unhealthy dietary regime, the nutritional and medical communities continue to insist that high blood cholesterol is dangerous and must be reduced. So that's another piece of conflicting information that we need to digest and assess. And I consider it a puzzle piece, and we're just going to put it on the table, and we'll sort it out as we go along.
And it's interesting too that when they say things like that, you notice they only ever say cholesterol. They don't differentiate in most of these party lines between high density, which is good, and low density, which isn't. They just say cholesterol, and it's really confusing, misleading too.
This is from Cardiologia, another semi-edgy group. Meanwhile, other studies were beginning to highlight the fact that individuals with high HDL, H for healthy, individuals with high HDL were less likely to present cardiovascular heart disease than individuals with low HDL. So this is the idea emerging that having higher levels of HDL might be more important than whether your LDL is high, that this being protected is more important than being at risk. Consequently, raising HDL cholesterol has become an accepted therapeutic strategy. somewhere, not necessarily in our medical community. Again,
Right.
another piece of conflicting information, another puzzle piece for you to put on the table and consider. From the CDC, here, what behaviors increase the risk of heart disease? Eating a diet high in saturated fats, trans fats, and cholesterol. So it's the same old party line. I just printed this out recently, you know, from a respected resource, not giving us the latest and greatest information. You have to be able to cut through this on your own and say, well, maybe, you know, maybe it'll take them another 10 years to really give us some useful information, because we expect these resources to be leaders in giving us the latest and greatest science, and they're laggers. So as you can see, you know, you have to go to edgy groups to get the more updated information, and the more conventional groups are going to give us, they're going to take a long time to change their story. Also, let's see, from the CDC, not getting enough physical activity, drinking too much alcohol, and smoking. And also from the CDC, to prevent high cholesterol, they're saying limit foods high in saturated fat. Choose foods that are low in saturated fat. You know,
it's all over the place.
It's all over the place. So you have to be able to think for yourself. And I'm hoping to persuade you today that the role of sugar is more potent than the role of fat in the diet, and that when you become conscious of sugar, you can correct a lot of these issues. From the National Institutes of Health, they say having high blood pressure, having high cholesterol, but they don't tell you how it happens, having an unhealthy lifestyle. See, I find these bullet points really useless. I mean, why put that out?
Very vague.
It's very vague. But there's agreement that cholesterol is a risk factor, and that it can build plaque, and that the plaque can, you know, make you pretty sick or kill you. So is high cholesterol a predictor of disease, Tony? Is high LDL cholesterol a predictor of disease?
I'm not sure if it's a predictor or a symptom.
Yeah, there's a relationship. So when somebody has heart disease of some kind, they typically notice that there's high LDL cholesterol, but it's not necessarily a predictor. So you can have the highest LDL cholesterol in the world and never have heart disease. Or you could have the lowest LDL cholesterol in the world and have heart disease. So it's not a predictor. There's a relationship. It's not exactly understood what it is. Some researchers think we need more refined definition or a better predictor, because cholesterol doesn't predict. It just is like a red flag,
right,
that something might be going on. So So the most prevalent theory about cholesterol is that it's the problem itself. It's the whole idea that fat through your lips equals fat on the hips equals cholesterol in your blood, and that cholesterol itself is the problem. The new theory that I want to make you aware of is that cholesterol is a symptom of a larger problem, and that larger problem is inflammation. That inflammation, let me just read to you about what inflammation is here. And chronic inflammation can have a long-term and whole body effect. This is from Alive Science. It's called persistent low-grade inflammation because it produces a steady low level of inflammation throughout the body, as judged by a small rise in immune system markers found in the blood tissue. And chronic low-grade inflammation does not have symptoms, but doctors can test for it with C-reactive protein, or something called CRP, a marker for inflammation in the blood.
But is that a common test? It doesn't seem like it is.
It's not a common test. We're still testing for cholesterol.
Yeah, LDL, HDL, triglycerides.
We're still doing that, you know. So, yeah, you know, when the next time you go and have your blood profile done, maybe you want to ask for a CRP test, a C-reactive protein test.
I'm making a mental note. That's what I'm going to ask for in a couple months.
To see if you have chronic low-grade inflammation. So the idea here is with the cholesterol is that for some reason you've got an irritant in your body that's causing this persistent chronic low-grade inflammation that you don't really notice or feel. And that the cholesterol is a protective response. It's trying to help you to deal with that, that whatever the irritant is and whatever's causing you the inflammation. And it's the idea of the same idea as a scab on a skin boo-boo, you know, where the scab doesn't look good and it forms this protective covering on your skin while the underlying skin is healing.
Right.
And it's the idea that cholesterol is trying to protect you from this irritant, from this thing that's causing your body to have low-grade inflammation. So it's the difference is that cholesterol is not the cause of the problem. It's a symptom of a greater problem. So I find that actually pretty exciting.
It is. That's really interesting news.
It's really interesting, isn't it?
Never knew about that connection.
So, so what do you think might cause all the inflammation? There's a bunch of theories and about what might cause inflammation, chronic, low-grade, systemic inflammation. That means that affects your whole body. Well,
based on some of our prior videos, I'm going to throw sugar out there.
All right. That's a pretty sure answer.
And all of its natural forms, the sugars, the syrups, you know.
Yes. So a long-term exposure to irritants, what might those irritants be? And here's the exciting part of what I want to share with you today. One irritant, one theory about what an irritant might be is excess insulin or excess sugar floating around in your blood vessels. And when you have excess insulin and excess sugar at the same time, that's because insulin is not doing its job of getting that sugar into your blood cells. And that condition is called insulin resistance. And in fact, that's the definition of what type 2 diabetes is, when you have insulin resistance. So your body is producing insulin to get the sugar out of your blood vessels, but it's not working properly. My personal little layman's theory about that is that your blood cells, just your insulin processing cells just give up. They've been overwhelmed and they just give up. But that's, you know, that's just my baby way of explaining it. So insulin and excess sugar, or the condition called insulin resistance, might be the underlying irritant that's causing inflammation. That's one theory.
Well, on that point, could it be that the individual is just the insulin and the pancreas that goes with it are all functioning normally for a quote unquote normal human being, but the intake of sugar is simply overloading it and it just can't keep up. It's running at a normal rate, so to speak, but it's getting overloaded by all the sugary things that are coming in.
Exactly. And the problem is that people do not realize that the body is easily overloaded by sugar whenever they exceed 1 teaspoon of added sugar at a time. It's going to click all these responses into action, the insulin and your body trying to deal with the excess sugar in your blood. And all it takes is 1 teaspoon of added sugar to produce that kind of result. That's why you have to get really conscious of how much added sugar you're putting in your body. And how many grams is 1 teaspoon, Tony?
4.
4. Exactly. So if you're eating more than 4 grams of added sugar at any one time, you're probably overproducing insulin, which might be the irritant that causes constant low-grade inflammation. And it's not very hard to exceed a teaspoon of sugar, is it, Tony?
No, hell no.
That's pretty easy peasy unless you're super conscious of it. So that's one theory. I really like that theory, actually. Another theory is that it's called glycation. Glycation. We have also a glycemic index. What do you think the gly refers to, Tony?
Glycerin?
Close. Glycation and the glycemic index are both measuring sugar.
Oh, okay.
So when you have a glycation, this theory is that the LDL cholesterol, the lousy cholesterol in your blood, becomes corrupted by glycation because there's so much excess sugar floating around in your blood. It just makes the LDL cholesterol not perform properly and form plaque. So that's another theory that, just the syrup that we've got in our blood is making the LDL cholesterol not do what it's supposed to do. And so that's another theory. And that involves what? Sugar.
Oh, sorry.
So we've got two theories so far. We've got the insulin resistance theory that could be the underlying cause of inflammation, and that's related to sugar consumption.
Yep,
and we've got
sure.
glycation of LDL, and that's related to sugar consumption. The third thing that might be the underlying cause of inflammation has to do with fat. That there are active, some fat tissue in the body might be more hormonally active than other fat tissue. It's the whole idea that there's, brown fat and white fat, and the brown fat might be more active. So it could be that, or it could be that when you eat a lot of fructose, what does that produce in the liver, Tony?
Fat.
Yeah, but the scientific word for that fat is
Lipids.
Triglycerides.
Oh, sorry.
That's
I was
good.
on another track. I should know that too, because I'm trying to get my triglycerides down for years now.
So the thing with table sugar is that most people don't realize with table sugar is that it's made of a molecule that's half glucose and half fructose, and the fructose goes straight to your liver where it produces triglycerides, and the triglycerides, or the active fat modules floating around in your blood, might be the underlying cause of inflammation. It might be the irritant that is causing your body to have low-grade inflammation. And what does that come from?
Sugar.
Sugar. So we've got three reasons, three possible theories of what's causing chronic low-grade inflammation. And those three are all related to your sugar consumption.
Yeah, back to chapter 1 on this sugar series. It's the sugar, stupid.
It is the sugar, stupid. Even with cholesterol, it's the sugar.
Yeah.
Another theory about what could be the inflammation is simply oxidation, which is the condition where you're literally rusting from the inside out. And toxins cause oxidation. So toxins could be toxins in the environment. Maybe you're living on a waste dump. That might not be too good for you, and that would cause chronic inflammation. We might have toxins in our food. There's an awful lot of chemicals in some foods that come in packages, and maybe that's the cause of inflammation. Insecticides are known causes of inflammation. Prescription drugs and treatments for serious diseases, they can, they can cause a lot of damage, even though they're doing a lot of good. So that can be
side
a
effects.
cause. What?
Yeah, the side effects that they try to list in their commercials.
Exactly. Smoking and alcohol. So those are some of the obvious causes of oxidation or toxins in our system. And that's the only theory that isn't directly related to sugar consumption. So you've got control over the first three theories of what might be causing a low-grade inflammation in your body just by limiting consumption of added sugars to 4 grams per serving. 1 teaspoon is all the body can handle at any one time. I just want to read a couple more things about inflammation for you while we're here.
Sure.
So here's Here's somebody from the Health Sciences Institute. When it comes to food choices, don't worry if it raises your cholesterol. Focus your attention instead on whether it reduces inflammation. And the three theories that we talked today, the food type that's going to have the most dramatic impact on reducing inflammation are sugars.
Sugars.
Um,
Sugar, sugar, and sugar.
Sugar. It's the sugar. Okay, here's another one. This is from Metabolic Healing. Elevated levels of fasting insulin is the single greatest marker to assess a person's cardiovascular and diabetic risk factors. So they're pointing to the insulin resistance that we talked about, when you have the insulin in your blood, but it's not working and it just floats around in your blood, and it might be that irritant that is giving you constant low-grade inflammation. What else do we have? This is from the Center for Biotechnology. The novel finding in this study was, however, that insulin sensitivity regulates cholesterol metabolism to a greater extent than obesity. So again, we have, the insulin theory popping up again, that could be the underlying cause of inflammation. Here we have these guys, Sinatra and Bowden. They wrote The Great Cholesterol Myth, and they say the primary cause of heart disease is inflammation. And then they go into all the reasons that they have, which include glycation, the ones we already talked about. So I just wanted to, present this information because there's so much conflicting information about what causes high cholesterol and what the role of cholesterol is, and whether it's the cholesterol or the inflammation that's really making us sick. One of the things about common cholesterol treatment is to take a drug that's called generically a what? Tony, you take one.
Yeah, statin.
A statin. And some people think that the reason statins are so effective is because they've been found to actually reduce inflammation. And that the reason they're the reason they work is not necessarily because they're lowering cholesterol, but because they're lowering inflammation while they're at it. And that's actually the real benefit of taking a statin. Of course, that's a controversial theory, but I'm throwing it out there on the table for you to think about.
Got it.
So let's see. Do I have anything else really good to read to you?
You've covered a lot of ground already. I mean, this is stuff that the average consumer is probably 50%, 80% unaware of.
Yeah.
In terms of the relationships between sugars and cholesterol and inflammation and so forth.
Yeah, it's the fat is bad message is still out there. As you noticed in some of the resources I was sharing with you, it's still being touted as the problem, as the solution. And, I'm just asking you to think for yourself and digest some other information as well, that maybe, we've had this problem for 50 years now, and we're on a steep slope. There hasn't been any slowdown in the slope of obesity or type 2 diabetes. And maybe there's a different solution that we need to consider. And I'm presenting the idea that it really is the sugar stupid.
Yeah, and it's not really, in any way, it's not really a dangerous experiment to try on yourself to simply give something up.
Exactly,
Or to,
try it.
Yeah, monitor your intake of sugar, to decrease it, eliminate it if you can. You're not going to do any harm.
You're not going to do any harm.
If it works, you're going to be that far ahead.
All it requires is that you become aware of the 4-gram rule. Never take more than 4 grams of added sugar at any one time. You have to look at the food label. Starting in 2021, companies that produce food that comes in a wrapper are supposed to say added sugars. So you want to go straight to that line and see if there's more than 4 grams of added sugars. And then you want to look at the ingredients list and see if the first 3 foods are a sugar. And by that, I'm not just talking about table sugar. I'm talking about any kind of caloric sweetener. And then make your own decision. You know, do you want to put that in your body? There's lots of choices now. Food manufacturers have gotten very smart. They know that consumers want less sugar and they're making products without it. So just shop around. You can do better most of the time.
And we've got a video coming up
We
soon
do.
about ingredients and what to look for and where to look for them in the list. Like Karen said, disregard the, you know, look through the, if it's in the first 3, water doesn't count as food. You'll learn all of that in an upcoming video, and we'll take a look at some labels and help you down, you know, to analyze what you're buying off the shelves.
So folks, if you found this video helpful, please smash that like button and consider subscribing to our channel. We'd love for you to be a part of the Sugar-Free Advantage family. Come back. Can't wait to visit with you again.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Karen. That was an excellent presentation, and we'll see you all next time.